Hello there, people of YouTube. I want to share a few thoughts on Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I have watched, at this point, only 17 minutes and 35 seconds into the pilot. To tell you a little about me, I'm a huge Star Trek Deep Space Nine fan. I'm a big fan of Star Trek The Next Generation. I like the last two seasons of Enterprise. Of course, the classic original series has a few really good episodes. For the most part, it's a product of its time. To be honest, not something I put on to watch just for entertainment the way I would The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. I've tried Voyager, I'm not so much into that. Last two seasons of Enterprise, that was actually my first show that I watched as a kid. And it's good. It's a good action show. I don't think Discovery was ever a good show. And I know that Starfleet Academy's background is that future jump that Discovery made for its last few seasons. I don't know that Discovery ever earned that jump thematically. I don't think it developed its side characters enough to put them through that and for the weight of it to be felt for I didn't care about it enough is the long and short of it. I like Strange New Worlds, by the way. I'm bouncing around topics here. But Discovery, this show is more of a spinoff of Discovery than anything, as is Strange New Worlds. But Strange New Worlds was the spinoff of the first part of Discovery that took place in the 23rd century. This show is a spinoff of the end part of Discovery that took place in the, I believe they say, the 32nd century. I didn't like the burn idea in Discovery. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't understand why they would make that choice to do that setting. Deep Space Nine did a deconstruction of the utopian Alpha Quadrant that the Next Generation set up. It did that only after it was set up. It spent a couple of seasons setting its own world building up. And it delivered, it earned the weight. Everything was character driven. It earned the weight of its choices to start tearing down the universe in a way and putting the Federation through a war. I don't feel like Discovery ever did. It had a war arc in the first season that was mixed with this. It was such a mixed mess of a tone for the show. It didn't thematically justify why. I mean, I don't necessarily think you have to be early season Next Generation, which is the most full Gene Roddenberry control over the franchise or the motion picture. Not everything in Star Trek needs to be that. But obviously, I don't think so, since Deep Space Nine's departed from that, certainly, but it did it by, it justified itself. And let me get to the point here. For the first 17 minutes, that's all I've seen so far. I'm watching the whole thing of Starfleet Academy, season 1, episode 1, Kids These Days. It didn't hook me in at first. I didn't have any trust that they were going to pay off what they set up. And I wasn't that interested in the opening. It reminded me of the Section 31 movie's opening, and I'm not even bothering to talk about the Section 31 movie. I didn't like it. This show, Starfleet Academy, has had a good scene. There's a scene where the Admiral tries to call this captain back into action. And this captain is some species. I don't think it's the same as like Guinan, but it's one of the species. It's a species that's very long lived. So she's hundreds of years old. She's a character who remembers Starfleet at its best, according to this admiral. So he wants her back. He's getting her back. This is a quick insert from Future Me, who has watched the entire thing, and I was hoping that they would at least allude a little more to this theme and this idea that they want to rebuild Starfleet and that this character, this captain, has lived through Starfleet at its best. And that's a window to the audience who remembers the old classic shows like The Next Generation and even Deep Space Nine, which is a little more of an offshoot, or Voyager even. But the character doesn't do that. She's different. She's nothing like any Star Trek Captain I've seen, and I'm not entirely faulting the show and saying it's bad. I'm saying I see that as a slightly missed opportunity. They had potential to do something there, and they alluded to the idea that they were going to do it, and then they didn't do that. They went completely off the rails for a few minutes with this stupid origami chicken bullshit. That's not to say that the rest of the pilot was all bad and the show is terrible, but it's not 100% paying off on its potential, but also it's not going to yet because it's a pilot. So, more on that later. I will let my past self take over again now. Thank you. This same character was the judge 15 years ago that locked this kid away, and this kid has kind of grown up, and I know from the posters of the show that this kid is going to end up in Starfleet Academy. And I don't hate it. I'm willing to give it a chance now because of that scene. I didn't think it was all terrible. Like, it opened with a lot of action, drawn out action, maybe slightly better done action than what you get in a lot of Picard or Discovery, but it wasn't holding my interest. But that scene made me curious about whether they're going to do something smart with the writing and the direction and the themes and the tones for the show. I at least am willing to give it a chance. I am taking one more quick pause at 19 minutes and 32 seconds for two reasons. One, this next scene is this captain telling this dangerous looking grown enough man who's a whole lot bigger than her that she's going to turn around, and she does it. She frees him up and he does all this stuff. He just assaulted somebody. Like, they're not lying that he's quote unquote a biter. Of course, they started it, but boy, did he finish it. So, okay. It doesn't have the certain sense of believability on the way the characters interact. I'm not saying that Star Trek is perfectly believable hard sci-fi. Hard sci-fi as in close to real science. It's not. It never has been. That is not the point of Star Trek. But there has always been a sense of a believability in the way the characters communicate and interact. That has not been perfectly consistent. There have been annoying Star Trek characters before. And this is a pilot. So they need to test out the characters. The point is that I wish they did the writing a little better, but this is season 1, episode 1 of a new show. Now, the thing about this new Trek era is that we're lucky if we get a total of 50 episodes. And with the old shows, it took them 50 episodes to figure out how to make the show good, with a few exceptions. Deep Space Nine had its good episodes in season 1. It was more steady from the jump, but they had already been making TNG for 5 seasons of 26 episodes apiece, and they kept that. They had a large part of that same creative team. These new shows do too many new things too fast to settle in. So it's a concern. It's a drawback. It makes me think this show's probably not going to be as good as Deep Space Nine. But the one other last thought before I actually give you more from the episode further along than what this is. I'm still in the beginning, and I understand that. I was going to watch no other reviews or media on the series, but I did click on a couple of things, and it may say something about what the algorithms feed me, but what I got was political in nature, and I watched some from both sides of the political spectrum. And I wanted to make this video to be a discussion that is non-political in nature, because it's not that political. This is an insert from the future me. This is the last one and the furthest one from the future. All I want to say is that I am only mostly stupid. I'm not completely stupid. And
it was not lost on me that this episode features kind of an allegory for child separation, which is like what America has done at its border. The original Star Trek did labor dispute episodes. In the original Star Trek, Zechron Cochrane had a problem with the space cloud being in love with him, and Spock called it a colloquial view of love. Star Trek from the beginning, by the way, they put like a Russian on the bridge during the height of the Cold War on an American TV show. Star Trek has been out there from the beginning. And this episode doesn't do anything out of line with that in any way. It is not any kind of obnoxious focus on identity for its own sake that Discovery does, and it's not the even worse Picard season 2 deal with immigration, where it's both more in your face and also actually meanders and doesn't make its point because the character impacted by it, most Rios, actually wants to still stay in the past after going through all of that, so it undercut the entire thing. It was horrible. So this is just, at least compared to that, a better written show that's just, again, not actually hyper woke or hyper overly in your face political. Along, it doesn't have Stacey Abrams appearing. It just doesn't. If it does, I'll let you know. Now back to Past Me.
It's not necessary. We don't have to make it political, people. It's just a TV show. And it's a Star Trek show. Now, as far as the diversity of the cast that I do already know, even though I haven't seen it yet, they haven't gotten that far. I know that it has a highly diverse cast because Star Trek was doing it before it was cool. It's kind of the whole point of Star Trek. So that is not lost on me. But I consider all of that an aside and not relevant to this TV show unless it makes it more. And I will leave it there and watch more of the show. So yeah, I think this character work is a little clunky, but it's still also holding my interest. I think I am interested in both of these characters now. I was worried I would not be, but no, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm curious to see what they want to do with their story. 26 minutes, 38 seconds. Honestly, I wish I was kind of doing a whole live reaction. Maybe one day we'll get there with future episodes. But I'm going to admit that the Doctor, the Voyager character, the Doctor, made me laugh already. He still got it. I like it. I like it a lot. I did not like the way they did the introduction of the Klingon and Caleb. That's the kid's name. Who's I guess the main character of the show. One of them. I didn't love the way they handled all of the dialogue. It's a little bit distractingly just kind of clunky and not suited to what it is, and it still has a little bit of kind of a Discovery style, absolute, all over the place characters acting like they belong in an asylum one minute and then being like, oh, hi, normal teenager, the next minute. It's a little bit distracting. Still a pilot. The show still seems to have the Doctor's writing correct. I hope they don't give him some Star Trek Picard treatment of terrible character arc and tragedy or anything stupid like that. I hope they leave him just like he is. And I'm okay with the first officer character being like a drill sergeant. I don't know if she's the best actress for the job. I started recording and the silence was real because I sort of thought I knew what I wanted to say, but I don't. I don't know. It has that discovery problem of not picking a lane and making it work for the show that it is. Because we're in this kind of boot camp teen drama sort of situation that had potential, but to me, they already have this guy as a freaking psychopath murderer. Maybe I'm overstating it. Maybe if I go back and look at the way he fought, it was more believable. I don't know. He just didn't seem like a character who wanted to deal with these teenage bully types of punks. Like, he didn't give me the vibes of a character who was suited to be in this show. They grew him up too fast. The actor is a whole ass grown adult who, I mean, the physique is honestly impressive for a TV show, like impressive for a TV show character. Like, you don't usually see it with the kind of schedules they have to work, but I'm losing interest in I don't like the cringy bullying type of things. I have to give this a chance too, but it's very much doing the wobbling of being all over the place in tone and setting. So, and I mean, we are more than 30 minutes in now, and you didn't have this problem with the old shows. So, I mean, I'm not turning it off yet, and I will if it gets too bad. But they still haven't fixed. It looks like they're going to have their pacing problems still because all I can say is that it's all over the place, and we're starting the teen drama, but we're not starting it until more than 30 minutes in. And if that's what this show is, then it needed to set that up and be better at that. A little over 44 minutes in, and we've started the random space battle. I don't know if this is anything that I should know about as a Discovery viewer. I'm not interested in it. I don't understand what's going on. I watched just enough of somebody else's review to know that people are just tired of these ships getting the shit kicked out of them too fast in these shows. And I do kind of agree with just that this show, I mean, to be fair, an encounter at Farpoint Q overwhelmed the Enterprise way too fast, arguably. But it was done in the more classic Star Trek way, and was non-destructive to the ship itself. This continues to be all over the place in whole new ways because now we're doing the ship getting destroyed. This is the Academy ship, and we were doing just teen drama stuff a few minutes ago, and then we were doing like psychopath murder prisoner before that. And we're still setting up characters. We're meeting the Doctor again. We're meeting new characters. And I want the show to just take its time and do that. We already have our main character, the Caleb guy, growing, learning, doing things, and I'm half invested in that. And I want the show to just own what it is more in that and not worry about the space battle stuff. It's so random. There is nothing about it that's been set up in the first. We're over 44 minutes in, and this is just throwing some random shit at us. It's just has not been set up yet in the episode. So why does this have to start now? You know, I'm venting a little bit of frustration, and I want to like the show, and I still might, but the all over the placeness. I wanted them to resolve that. I want them to go back to season 1 of Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds was a little rocky in its third season, in my opinion, and the first season was the best overall Star Trek that's came out in a long, long time. This is definitely, like, I will say that this is better than the first 2 seasons of Picard. The character writing is coherent. It's a pretty show. I have a screenshot of this space issue now. Um, I will admit that the bridge is a little tad annoying. The bridge set, just something about it. It is a little bit too maybe big. Like they sort of had like a cutaway of getting a report from the helmsman guy, and it's like delivered through like a microphone or something, or a speaker to the captain. And that's a tad annoying because the technology fails all the time in Star Trek. So, having complained about those things, and I know I shared those complaints with some other YouTubers you can find, let me tell you what I don't mind and what I like. I like that the first officer just instantly transports around and it's fast. So the transporter is changed up a little bit. It's a mix of future technology and then rebuilding in terms of infrastructure and what Starfleet was. And that's the premise of the 32nd century era of Star Trek that this is. And I don't hate that. I'm willing to give this more of a chance than I did Discovery. I'm past the infamous, at this point, origami chicken nonsense. I agree that that's a terrible line. The character's badly written. He's not entertaining like Q. He doesn't have a good screen presence. Like, he's trying too hard and getting nowhere. However, I will say that the character work they're doing, I am three-quarters of the way invested in now. They are tying some of this into the main character's main plot line in a way that is compelling. I think it's only drugged down by the random shitness and very poor writing and characterization of the what's his face, Paul Giamatti, whatever that guy's name is, the baldish origami chicken guy. Oh, that's very annoying. Pretty grating to watch. But I'm still, the characters are not lost on me. Very quick note, a little more than 53 minutes in. When things are more chilled down, I was just going to overlook the captain crawling all over her chair like a weirdo. But now they're in go mode. They need to be doing their jobs. They're dealing with a threat, and she starts doing that, and it's a little just too distracting. There's a lot of this show so far I'm noticing that has been taken up to 11, and if they kept it at a 7 or an 8, it would be so much better. A little over 58 minutes in, I'm going to admit that they had me at asshole 1 to asshole 2. They're holding my interest. I care about what's going on. I like the characters enough to start to get invested in what's happening. Like, I actually want to stop yapping and get back to the show to see what happens. So all is left to do is stick the landing. If they can somehow not screw up the ending, no more random shit. I have no more random shit tolerance to call this an okay episode. But the character, the guy who started out as a bully, he's becoming too much of a good guy too fast. There's a little bit more of the all over the placeness there. I'm willing to give it a little bit of slack for being a pilot and trying to show the characters. And with the action and the way the dialogue is handled, like, I wish they're going just a bit too much too fast. Still. And they tend to do that a lot with these new shows, especially Discovery and some of the early seasons as of Picard, I think, due to the extent that I watched or remembered any of that. That was an experience. It does feel like they've learned some lessons from that, but they're also kind of doubling and tripling down on some things that they could have Strange New World Season 1 did a little more. No. No, 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 no. Not doing a 1 to 10 score, but that would drop it like 3 points if I was. Okay, final thoughts and reflections. By the way, feel free to review my review. I mean, I don't need to hear that my tech equipment and production values are not the best yet. We're doing this for, for free and stuff. But tell me what you think overall of the idea of this kind of format. It's a little bit of a hybrid of a reaction and a review. So, if you're being told, and I know you will be watching some people's videos, that this is therapy speak and a big liberal woke message being forced on you, you are being straight up objectively lied to about what this pilot is. I mean, I can't speak for the whole series. I've seen the first episode. The acting is not terrible. It's overall a good looking show. There's a few exceptions. I think the low point of the show was the villain they threw on with the origami chicken guy. That was the most annoying, just pointless, just bad in a bad way. Like, he wasn't fun to dislike. He was just grating to exist. I think the show has potential. I think I would have liked to see more of the time spent with the cadet characters. Maybe a little more of the doctor, maybe a little more of the first officer being fleshed out as a more rounded character. A lot of the characterization suffers from being all over the place and doing too much too fast. The bully character is just a bully and then decides to be a good guy. And the first officer just decides to be a drill sergeant and then is still a liked and respected character without really earning that from kids who have no reason to give her that respect right away. Like, she needed to earn it in a way that the show doesn't give them time. Same thing with the captain in a way, really. There was kind of a rushed character dynamics for the respect of their authority. So there's that. But that said, I think this is better than Discovery's pilot. It took more of a risk than Strange New Worlds' pilot, and I won't fault it for that. I think I'm going to watch the next episode and see where the show goes. It is definitely not another Voyager or even Enterprise. It's a somewhat different thing. It hasn't necessarily done a lot to earn the Star Trek name. What I wish it only briefly touches on the idea of wanting to do a show about a federation that's largely collapsed and is trying to rebuild. It only lightly touches on that, and it's way too in your face about how kind of militant the Federation is, and like on TNG and Deep Space Nine, like when they threatened you with going to a penal colony, a Federation penal colony, like it was like a freaking vacation. Like, this is not that Federation. And they touch on that being intentional and them wanting to do something, but they don't earn it in the same way that Deep Space Nine did, as it kind of, for the words that come to mind, are put humanity on trial, which is part of the idea of what Q did in the Next Generation to the crew, but he didn't really, they weren't challenged and tested, even by the Borg, at the same level for the same amount of drawn out time as the Dominion did in Deep Space Nine. It's got some good characters. It's got a lot of good acting. It is, again, overall, just a good looking show. I enjoyed a couple of moments on the show's terms with the Doctor and even with the first officer who we've just met. And I think it has potential. The show did do just enough to stick the landing for me that I'm willing to give it more of a chance. That's where I am. My final thoughts are that this is a serviceable pilot. And what it does better than Discovery so far is that it's not as over the top melodramatic. It did learn some lessons, by the way, as Pike actually had the characters sound off their names. This show does the same thing. It does a little bit of an introduction for the side characters. The main character is definitely more likable than Michael Burnham ever was. So, like, it set itself up to at least be a better show than Discovery, and I gave up on watching Discovery, I think, at its third season. And its Discovery was always a show that had some good moments, so it was not always a terrible show at all. Now, that show, speaking of the politics and the wokeness and the identities and all of that, Discovery, I do think, was guilty of being so obnoxious about it. Like, the Star Trek thing is to just let the people exist and be professionals and interact with each other. Now, this is still younger characters in the show, and Starfleet is not what it used to be in this show, and all that's intentional. They wanted to get away from the dry cuts of the Next Generation and the preachy dialogue. So it's by design, and I think it comes down to whether or not I could recommend the show, whether or not that's something you want to watch. Honestly, for like a not Star Trek fan, I would probably recommend the show, which is, and to the Star Trek fans, It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to give this a chance. And it's less melodramatic than Discovery. It is still a little all over the place. It's not as smart as The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. It's not a complete incomprehensible mess like the first couple of seasons of Picard. So if that's enough for you to give it a chance, then watch it. Uh, if that's just not good enough and you're just going to either abandon the franchise or watch the reruns of the old shows, then I respect that. I respect it either way.